Hi everybody, my name is Joy Story and I am completing my weekly review 2 for EDIS 6400. So this week we covered the different systems that we use to give supports to students. So there's SDI, which is specifically design instruction. There is multi-tiered support and response to intervention, or RTI, and there is a difference between the two. The difference between the two is the multi-tiered supports covers not only academic but the positive behavior intervention supports, or the PBIS system as well. We covered also the two different frameworks for evaluating a student's or person's need for assistive technology. So there was the HAT, which is human activity assistive technology, and then there was the SET framework. So those were the big ideas that we talked about. Something that I learned while doing this was that dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia really is that ability to see things in different ways, but what really hit home was just the lack of memory. And being somebody who does moderate to intensive, I'm used to there not being a memory and we hit on the same skill over and over again. I didn't think for my students this year, because I'm doing mild to moderate, that specific learning disability was going to be the same thing. So definitely when I go back to classes tomorrow and start teaching again, I'm definitely going to hone more on repetition and not assume that students will just get it and not need to come back and revisit the topics. So I just found that was really interesting. As for the assistive technology features that we explored on the computer, I already knew several of them were there. I wish I would have brought my Chromebook home from work so that I could have done some assistive tech work on the Chromebooks that not only I but my students use as well. One app that we do use as an extension is the Read and Write extension, and we really love it at school. It's free. It's easy for students to use once the software works like it's supposed to. And especially the reading feature where it just lets you highlight within the Google Doc and hit play and just reads the text aloud to the students. It's really nice. Because other than our textbooks and our Newsela, a lot of our content does not read aloud. And that just gives the students that option to have the read aloud content. So that is my sorted out piece. And what I'm taking into school this week and how I'm going to apply what I learned is, once again, just understanding that my students need to have the repetition over and over and over again, and that they are going to go through those successes of they nailed it and then they're going to take 3 steps back. I also found it really interesting for the students that have the ADD, ADHD, just the difference that taking that drug and stimulant made for that one child, how she was so much more able to keep track of her assignments and understand what she was doing. So I feel like also how I mentioned the drugs, how if it's not going to be Ritalin, it's going to be caffeine, it could be marijuana, it could be a much harder substance in order to give that same relief to a student. So I thought that was really impactful for when I work with parents and just recommending different treatment options for their students. So probably my big takeaway reflection from this week is just understanding the I want to say it's the Milo's hierarchy of needs. And so I have students on my caseload that they take assistive technology and they run with it. They are so wanting to be on the same level of their peers and they excel. I have other students who it's not there for them. I'm happy if they get the assignments done sometimes that week. And so for me, I think it's really looking at the hierarchy of needs. For my students that are just barely getting the assignments done, what other supports do they need from me? Is it they need a quiet place to study because they're not getting a quiet place at home? Are they needing an ear to listen on because things at life are home are rough? And just taking into account the different sets of challenges that students come in to the classroom with before we start even teaching. And if those needs aren't being met at home, you have a guardian that's not able to check your progress book, hold you accountable for your grades. They're an older guardian that's not able to talk to the student, then all of that takes effect into how much the student's going to apply themselves with the assistive technology. And my other big takeaway is just that the student has to want it. It was also interesting to see that, once again, the perception of disabilities. As an intervention specialist, I'm so excited about this. I want to do everything for my kids. I want them to know, hey, you have this need. Hey, this stuff can help you. But students have to want to recognize that they have the need in order to use the assistive technology, especially in 7th grade. Everybody knows teenagers don't do anything unless they want to. So just kind of evaluating the needs, what my students need from me, and just kind of taking my students where they're at. Some of them are really pushing hard in their academics. They want to do a secondary program after they leave high school. Others of my students still don't know what they want to be before they leave high school. So just taking my students where they're at and varying that level of supports for them so that they can be successful. That's what I've learned a lot from watching this. So thank you and have a good night.